So if you're like me, you're probably sitting there with a little inkling in the back of your mind. You look around and everything looks okay right now, but you feel something's not right with the economy. And in my opinion, you would be right. Anyone with their finger on the economy is predicting a recession in 2023, and I tend to agree with them. And that's why I've spent the last 6 months getting my house in order to take advantage of what could be one of the few opportunities in our lifetime to create generational wealth. And you can too, if you position yourself properly and get prepared. Let's get into it. Now, the observant viewer may have picked up that I'm actually oddly excited about what's to come. Now, it may seem counterintuitive, there's going to be a lot of pain out there, but as history has shown, the biggest transfers of wealth happen during crises and downturn. Our goal here is to be on the receiving end of this transfer and not the giving end. And one of the ways we are going to do this is by building a war chest of cash, because cash gives us liquidity, and liquidity allows us to be in a position to buy undervalued assets. And assets are how you build wealth. So, what tends to happen in a significant downturn is people who aren't prepared for it, they tend to panic. And when people tend to panic, people make irrational decisions and sell assets that they may not have. Or the changing economy may have forced their hand and forced them to liquidate those assets. Have you ever heard of the Rothschilds? It's okay if you haven't, but a pat on the back if you have. Cliff notes on the Rothschilds is that they owned one of the first international banks, and that made them incredibly wealthy. But the amount they made in banking pales in comparison to the single biggest transfer of wealth in human history, which they were the direct benefactor of. So during the Napoleonic Wars, specifically the Battle of Waterloo, which was essentially Britain's last stand, the Rothschilds had scouts all over the battlefield. And when they seen the British were close to winning the battle, these scouts rushed back to London and spread rumours around the London Stock Exchange that Britain had in fact lost the war, which caused a panic in the market and stocks to crash. The Rothschilds then went and bought up all the stock, and when the news finally came out that Britain had actually won the Battle of Waterloo, the stock prices all jumped back to pre-panic levels, and now the Rothschilds owned all of it. That's how devastating and dangerous irrational thought and panic can be. So we need to make sure that we are greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. That's the other huge benefit that having cash on hand can give you. It creates a buffer between you and irrational decisions and desperation. Because let's face it, at some point we all come into hard times. Whether it's getting sick or losing a job, it's bound to happen. All a downturn in the economy does is amplifies those effects significantly. It's all good and well to have a nice car, but if you lose your job and struggle to find another one, it's pretty hard to pay your bills with it. And the only way you can pay your bills with it really is to liquidate it into cash. And generally, you're going to liquidate it at a significantly lower market value than what it should be sold at. And that's why it's so important to have liquid cash. If you have cash on hand and times get tough, you can always go to the mattresses, so to speak, and pay bills, which will significantly reduce your chances of making a bad decision. Now, I understand it's easy for me to sit here and say get into cash and save a heap of money, as I have spare cash. But what if you don't? Well, I'm going to give you the secret of making quick cash and won't even try and sell you a 997 course to find out. Do you want to get quick cash? Sell the crap you don't use. That's it. Now, it's actually the perfect time to do this too, as prices of everything are so overinflated that all that stuff that you have laying around is never going to be worth more than it is now. And I like to practice what I preach. And we had a massive clear out of all our belongings, and we managed to turn all of our old stuff that we didn't want anymore into about $12,000 of cash. Even if it's stuff that you use every now and again. Trust me when I say, if I'm right, you will be able to buy all of this stuff again if the economy turns for the worse, for cents on the dollar compared to what you sold it for. Now, getting into cash is only one way we are going to prepare for a recession in 2023. And I would argue the next points are as important, if not more important. But before I get into those, hopefully you're getting some insights and value from this video. And to be honest, you may need this video as a reference for the future. So hit the subscribe button now. Go on, you know you want to, because you know what YouTube's like. If you don't do it now, then you'll probably never see my content or content like it again. Now let's get back into the ways we can prepare for a recession. So if you're sitting watching this video and you only have one stream of income, you are at a massive risk. So the reason for this is what happens if you lose it, which there is a potentially high chance of happening if the economy turns. I feel like having one stream of income is one of the riskiest positions you can be in right now, considering there's so much information out there on how to create more of them. Any additional income streams, however small, will logarithmically reduce the risk of you getting caught by this next downturn. I myself have 5 income streams, and I know if I was to lose a few of those because of the economy, I would still be okay, which in turn will make sure I don't make any rational decisions because of panic. The next thing we need to do is get out of debt as fast as possible. Even if we have to work an extra job or cut back on expenses, carrying huge debt loads into 2023 is super risky. And honestly, getting rid of debt does 2 things. 1, it makes the gap bigger between you and irrational decisions when the economy downturns. And 2, it gets you into the habit of living within your means, because when a recession hits, the ability to access credit tightens, and getting used to that environment now mentally prepares you for what's coming. I'll also say this, it is also extremely freeing living without debt, knowing that no one can put the boot on your neck if they don't get paid. The next thing we need to do is mentally prepare our significant other. I never hear this mentioned, and arguably it's one of the most important things we need to do, because from their point of view, it may just look like you're worrying about a problem or issue they don't see or they don't think exists. So you need them to start seeing that this is a real risk to you and them. A huge word of warning here. People have the tendency to just dump this all on their significant other's lap, and they may be living in blissful ignorance. If you dump it on someone in that state of mind, they will just shut you out. You need to make sure you do it subtly and without pressure, and you need to lead with your actions. One way to do this is that next time you're in a car ride, say for instance, instead of putting on music, put on a financial podcast or a video about how the monetary system works. If you slowly introduce them to the concept, you'll have a way better chance of getting buy-in from them. Why is this important? Well, if you are prepared mentally and they aren't, when the economy does turn and we run into trouble, they will head straight to an irrational headspace as a fight or flight reflex. And you'll be spending a lot of time, energy, and effort talking them out of that thought process, which can lead to huge divisions. And you really need to be unified under crisis. Okay, so if you've watched it this far, firstly, well done. You even being cognizant and wanting to take control of your own destiny by facing an uncomfortable topic head on makes you better prepared than 99.9% of the population. So by default, you're already better equipped than almost everyone on the planet. But you need to listen to this last point because it's the most important, and that is to learn, learn, learn. This is broad, I know, but this is the most important thing in the video. If you're going to face an enemy, which in our case is a recession, you need to understand your opponent, and learning from history is one of the best ways to do that. For better or worse, human history is littered with examples of what's coming. While they may all have different flavors and causes, the results are generally the same. So my advice would be to take a small portion of the time you spend on YouTube and look at some of these other events and how people lost and benefited, and use that information to help you formulate your own plan. The reason I am as prepared as I am now is I have learned from other people's mistakes, and I've learned skills I felt were necessary to not fear what's coming and actually kind of in a weird way look forward to it, as I know mentally and physically I'm equipped to roll with the punches. So there it is, guys, your blueprint on how to prepare for a recession in 2023 and be on the receiving end of this massive transfer of wealth as opposed to the giving end. Now, for some of you, you may be completely overwhelmed and really lost on where to start. And that is completely normal, and that is completely understandable. It's a huge topic and it's an uncomfortable topic. So if it helps, I'm going to leave some links in the description of this video on where you can start your journey and start to explore and unpack this topic so you can make your own plan of an attack. Also, if you're a business or you're thinking of starting one, you really need to watch this video here, because in this video, I talk about the things you can do specifically as a business to prepare for a downturn. Thanks for watching and take care.